Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 15th, 2021, around 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for Tropical Storm Fred to be impacting Florida within the next day, and a look at Tropical Storm Grace and newly designated Invest Area 96L near Bermuda. So let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, several things ongoing for today. We have recently redeveloped Tropical Storm Fred, which is right over here, and this will be moving towards the north during the next 24 hours or so. This will be impacting the Florida Panhandle tonight into tomorrow, and will probably be making landfall sometime tomorrow afternoon or evening. We have Tropical Storm Grace, which is very disorganized at the moment, somewhere in here near Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. This will be moving west or west-northwest during the next couple of days or so and could be impacting Hispaniola and Cuba directly. And then we have recently developed Invest Area 96L near Bermuda, and this will likely be designated as a tropical depression or storm by tomorrow. And a new tropical wave that is emerging off of Africa today. No real model support for this yet, though development chances may start to go up as this moves westward over the next couple of days or so. So firstly, looking here at, again, this is Tropical Storm Fred. Again, Fred did regenerate into a tropical storm this morning and is now being labeled as such. Again, this is now expected to be moving towards the Florida Panhandle over the next couple of days. And again, within the next 24 to 36 hours, this will be making landfall here somewhere close, anywhere between Mobile Bay and really about the Walton County line there, and then all the way towards like Gulf Shores area, etc. Could be dealing with adverse impacts from this. Now, this is not especially strong at the moment, but if we take a look here at the visible satellite from earlier, we can tell that we have a couple of things that are ongoing. Today, first and foremost, we notice that there's a lot more in the way of westerly winds across this area, suggesting that we do have something here in the form of kind of a curlicue area, and then we also have easterly winds here, so this indicates that we do in fact now have a closed low-level circulation. We also had an attempt at deep convection to fire near the low-level circulation, which you can see, but this is a pulsing type storm right here, which means that it went up, and as quickly as it went up, it came right back down. And that's really because of the fact that there's a lot of dry air. You can see these arc clouds here suggesting that we have outflow. And with tropical systems, you don't want to see outflow. You want to see air that's coming into the storm, not going away from the storm. And because of the fact that we have dry air working on the western part of the storm right now, this is getting entrained into the circulation. You can kind of see some of the moat here where we don't have any substantial convection at the moment, and this is getting wrapped around. It's kind of pulling here from the Florida Panhandle, getting all the way wrapped around into the circulation, and this has helped to kind of choke off thunderstorms in this region, although they are still kind of ongoing, but they are certainly a little bit more in the way of shallow convection across this area. As for the rest here, we can also tell that, again, there is some substantial convection and cloud debris working across the Florida Peninsula today. We even had a severe thunderstorm warning up near Pinellas County, Florida, just a little while ago. That's now since expired. We have more convection that's coming onshore here. Again, this onshore flow is present because, again, we have these easterly winds in front of the tropical storm at the moment. But all this cloud debris is spreading now well inland and has kept our temperatures down. Official temperature here looking is about 88 degrees off the outdoor weather station here. So we're looking at about 88 degrees currently, which is several degrees cooler than our long-term average for this time of the year. The aircraft reconnaissance mission that was in there earlier, again, to upgrade this back to a tropical storm. Again, you notice that we have very clear westerly winds here, and on the northern side of this, we have very clear easterly winds, suggesting this, in fact, is a closed low-level circulation. Tropical storm force winds, again, we were seeing some reports here of flight level winds of about 45 to 50 knots. And again, you convert that down to surface wind, this is looking at about 40 miles per hour or 35 knots. So this is a tropical storm, and for that reason, again, the Hurricane Center did upgrade this to a tropical storm. Now, again, we'll take a look here at the modeling for this in a minute, but instead we'll look here at Tropical Storm Grace. Again, this is a tropical storm with sustained winds of 40 miles per hour, but the official best track data from 18Z or 2 p.m. suggested that here in about 30 minutes, this will get downgraded to a tropical depression because the recon plane from earlier did not find tropical storm force winds. Either way, the low level center is expected to be here south of Puerto Rico, although I highly doubt that right now. And on this current forecast path, this is expected to cross over Hispaniola during the next day or two and then cross over Cuba for the next 3 days and then eventually wind out, or over the next 3 days, and then eventually wind out here somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, sustained winds at this point on the 5-day forecast had the day 5 point at about 65 miles per hour. So this would be getting up here into the mid-grade tropical storm status. Now, one of the things that is possible today, if we look here at the visible satellite imagery, what we'll notice, and this is just slightly delayed, but this goes to about 2:35 this afternoon. We'll see if we can't get, yeah, no, it's still going to be 2:35. But again, from 2:35 this afternoon, we noticed that this was very disheveled looking. Again, we had a lot of convection south and a lot of convection north here. And again, this is kind of split into two areas where the current low-level center estimated by the Hurricane Center is somewhere in here. Now, based on satellite and recon data, if we can get to that right here, we notice that there is no such low-level center in here. There's pretty much just all straight line winds here. This is not curling around on either end. However, it is a little bit more apparent that there is wind shifts down here, very weak and disorganized, but there is some wind shifting down here in this ball of convection. And because of that, this is where it is probable or much more believable that there would be some type of low-level center, which for reference would be in this area right through here. Now, given the fact that this is currently where the low-level circulation could be, this opens the door for several possibilities. And in fact, we could even see a track that ends up here going south of Hispaniola. It would take a fair bit of west-northwest movement here for this to kind of get now into Hispaniola and significantly over the very rugged mountains there. So it is looking a little bit more possible today, if in fact a low-level circulation is here, that this may kind of continue on more of a west-northwest motion and miss Hispaniola. And if it does so, this wouldn't mean necessarily an intensification right away. Now, again, we'll have to look at that in the modeling here in a second. We're also watching another system, Invest Area at 96L near Bermuda. And again, this system is looking a little bit better organized today. Again, this goes back to just about now. But we can see that in the visible satellite imagery, it is apparent that we actually could have a closed low-level circulation in here and modest deep convection that is rotating or trying to rotate around here. And this is going to be drifting southward over the next few days into warmer waters near Bermuda. So for interest in Bermuda, this could bring some gusty winds and squally conditions and heavy rainfall to the region. Again, this is expected to kind of do something like that and kind of rotate around here as an upper level trough eventually will begin to kind of pick this thing and scoot it northward. So for our for folks here in Bermuda, this is something to monitor over the next couple of days or so. So getting into all the modeling now, this is the GFS forecast, the 12Z run valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon, the 850 millibar vorticity map. So we're looking here at the spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. Now again, what we can kind of tell here is we're watching this system right here. This is Fred, this is Grace, and this is 96L over here in this very broad tropical wave over here. So we'll go ahead and zoom in and we'll start to look here at Fred first. So again, we can tell that Fred is a little bit better organized today. Now, if we jump to the 200 millibar wind in the upper part of the atmosphere, though, we can see that there will be some challenges that lie ahead. We do have this ridging here that is kind of displaced from our storm at the moment. This is the ridge right here in this upper level anticyclone that is here. And because of that, again, this is imparting a little bit of northerly shear across our storm right now. And what this could end up leading towards is this could end up kind of leading towards the storm getting sheared from the north and creating a better pace environment for dry air on the southern side to be transported into the circulation. Now, eventually, what ends up happening is this low here, this upper level anticyclone moves over the southwestern Florida peninsula here by tomorrow morning, and our storm is still sitting south here of the Florida coastline. Now, a look here at the sounding for the vortex average sounding, we'll notice that there's a couple of important things. We have a pretty good change of wind direction with height. Again, we started at the surface about 1,000 millibars, moving winds here out of the east or southeast and changing northerly to the kind of northerly direction here, or in this case, this would actually be southerly wind here. This is southerly wind here at, again, just about 350 millibars. And so this is getting towards the top of the atmosphere. But this kind of is, again, in between this broad upper level low that's kind of been weakening over the last several days and this upper level anticyclone now established over the southwestern Florida peninsula. If we take a look here at the moisture field, again, the moisture field for this does show a little bit more of a robust tropical cyclone during this time, where the moisture is at least a little bit better enveloped around our current storm. And this would allow for, again, more moisture to get on the western and southern sides. But there is some dry air that will be lurking to the south. And again, this particular run of the GFS allows the storm to strengthen a little bit before landfall. And this is even kind of coherent on some of the other models. If we look here at, for instance, like the H-Wharf model from earlier, again, we can kind of see that, again, the H-Wharf is similar, where it actually gets the storm down into the low 990 range. And it is possible we could have a little bit of a stronger storm than 50 miles per hour, which is the current projected Hurricane Center forecast. We can tell that, again, we do have some of this weird flow going on up here, and that might be a result here of the storm. So let's go ahead and grab a smaller frame. But we can kind of see that, again, we're going to have this weird flow creating a little bit of shear, not a lot of dry air, but again, we can tell that there is just a little bit here of wonky wind flow, and this could be one of the reasons why in fact, that we may not see the storm last for all that long in terms of intensity. And in fact, here on the model, it again starts to weaken this inner core structure a bit. The HMON, though, again, the HMON is a little bit stronger and could indeed potentially even have a high-end tropical storm or a low-grade hurricane in here by tomorrow at 15 Zulu time. So this would be about 11 a.m. tomorrow, approaching somewhere across the western Florida panhandle at this point. So again, for folks here, the main threat is still going to be that heavy rainfall, flooding, and the threat for tornadoes, especially here in the outer rain bands. But we can't rule out that this couldn't be packing winds of 60, 65, 70, maybe even 75 miles per hour as this moves inland. Again, it is possible that we see a low-end Category 1 hurricane before landfall, but again, right now I would not bank on it too high for the moment. Now, jumping back here on, again, what we'll be looking for, we'll move back here to the Western Atlantic, and we'll take a look here at Tropical Storm Grace. Again, right now, it's very disorganized, and in fact, here on the modeling for 2 p.m. this afternoon, again, here's all this moisture in dark green here. We also have this approaching dry air from the tropical easterly jet that is screaming through here at this time. And what's going to end up happening, again, the 12Z GFS is a little bit more coherent with moving this over parts of the Hispaniola, Dominican Republic area, and then moving it over Cuba, in which case this would actually weaken the storm quite a bit. If we look here at the 850 millibar vorticity, again, the storm does kind of get going south there, and then it just kind of really ends up faded because of the fact this moves actually right over Hispaniola. And a lot of the tall mountains there significantly disrupt our storm, and it cannot really form an inner core down the road. And again, if we end up, though, having a circulation that is able to avoid Cuba, like possible now, with the low-level center being well to the south, it is indeed possible that we get a storm that moves westward instead of moving over Hispaniola. It would move south of Hispaniola and potentially closer to Jamaica, or further south than that. And that's some of the possibilities highlighted by some of the ensembles. Now, if we go later in the forecast period, again, this is through about 96 hours. There's nothing really to speak of on the GFS. And in fact, again, if we look here at the 200 millibar wind, we'll notice that the environment, though, is and would be pretty conducive to strengthening if we had a storm here in the east, or really parts of the Western Caribbean at this point, a fair bit of an anticyclone moving over the place here. Again, we will have this kind of a jet interaction here. So if a storm is not very strong and moving out of this environment, it's going to get completely ripped apart here. But again, eventually what happens though is we do get something to form on the GFS. And in fact, here at day 5, this is about 1,003 millibars underneath this anticyclone here. And in fact, it kind of creates a little ripple between this kind of jet interaction here. And it is possible that we get a storm to intensify a bit more. Now, one of the worst case scenarios we can look at here is what's going to happen on the HWAR forecast. Again, we get a storm that initially kind of consolidates here south of Hispaniola, moves over the island and jumps northward, and we in fact get a center reformation, in which case then we have a storm that starts to undergo rapid intensification as it's passing, kind of generally like this. And again, the environment once again around our storm here, we'll try to get a better sounding, our environment around the storm at this point wouldn't be all that unfavorable. Again, only about 12 knots of shear, and most of it is in the form of speed. So again, this would be something that could be easily overcome with the storm that is a little bit stronger at this point in time. Now, again, if we look here at another case scenario like the HMON, again, this is the hurricane-specific models, we notice that the HMON, for what it's worth here, this is the wrong storm, but if we look here at Grace, we can tell that, again, the HMON doesn't really see much. In fact, it does develop a storm south here of Hispaniola, but it gets completely torn apart, sheared, and then there is nothing here on the domain by Wednesday morning. So this is actually Wednesday, or this is Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, and there's nothing even here on the model. So it is indeed possible that we may not end up with a storm in this environment. Now, if you look here at what could eventually end up happening, if you look here at the 500 millibar vorticity for our storm, again, Grace will be situated in an environment where no matter what, it will be moving westward, northwest during the next couple of days. And again, it matters a lot on the center position. If we end up getting a storm that is more so towards the north like this will pretty much move over Hispaniola, move over Cuba, and weaken over here in the very mountainous terrain. And we saw what that did to Fred. However, if we get a storm that is a little bit more north or is a little bit south here, again, we're going to get a storm that completely misses the island here and may be able to find itself in better environment. And once we start getting out to about 12Z on Thursday, so this is 8 a.m. Thursday, we have this ridge that's going to be developing over the Carolinas at this point, and that's likely to keep a storm going generally towards the west-northwest. And this is unlikely at this point then to turn straight northward because, again, you got this big ridge here and the storm isn't strong enough at this point. The main steering component would generally be out of the west, kind of generally from about south-southeast to kind of west-northwest at roughly about 18 knots or so. And this would likely keep a storm generally going westward. And again, no matter what ends up happening, we're going to have a steering flow where the net motion out of here is generally west-northwest across this entire area. So it's going to matter, again, a lot on the storm position, and there's going to be a lot of subsequent details that we're going to need to refine over the next couple of days. Again, the current track forecast does have this moving over Hispaniola and weakening before re-emerging into the Gulf of Mexico through the next 4 and 5 days and strengthening some as it is on approach to either Texas or Louisiana. But again, it cannot really be said enough that this is very difficult to pin down. And in fact, we may have a storm track at 5 o'clock that is a little bit more west than it is over the islands. So again, we'll just have to see how that kind of interacts from there. Again, as for Invest Area 96L, this is a developing tropical cyclone by all indications. Again, we have what appears to be a closed low-level center of circulation in here with deep convection. If we can get this to sustain itself, this will likely then be upgraded to a tropical depression or storm. For what it's worth, here is some of the forecast modeling here on 96L. Again, the HWAR forecast on the 12Z run, we can all go back to the 60 run, but the 12Z run really isn't that enthusiastic with development. In fact, again, it has this broad or very sharp wave axis that's located in through here, but this is just a open trough at this point. This is not a closed circulation. The GFS model here for 96L, again, does have the storm that, again, tries to develop, but it's not really able to. And the HMON also has a similar evolution to the GFS and Euro, or the GFS and HWRF, but indeed, this here does develop a closed lull of circulation and is able to sustain deep convection for long enough to at least be classified as a tropical storm briefly before then getting pulled into the very cold sea surface temperatures. This should not really be much of a concern to Florida or the southeastern United States coast or the United States at all, but interest in Bermuda should continue to monitor the progress of this system. All right. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.